Dear listeners, today I will tell you a touching story about love and hope that took place in one of the poorest countries in the world, Burundi. In this small country, where the daily income is less than $1, a bicycle is considered a luxury, and electricity is a rare treasure. An American entrepreneur went through an incredible journey. We will discover how a random shipwreck changed the fate of an entire village and revealed the power of a promise. Have you ever imagined how many lives can be touched by the will and determination of a single person? I am certain that after today's story, your view on human potential and hope will change dramatically. Before we begin, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Your support means the world to us. Also, turn on the notification bell so you won't miss more moving and inspiring stories. Click the subscribe button and the bell right now. Now, let's travel together into the deep valleys and lush green hills of Burundi to witness that unexpected encounter. Alexander Orton, 43 years old, was a successful American businessman. From the outside, his life seemed perfect. He was the head of Orton Construction in New York, with projects across Asia and Europe. There were never enough hours in his day, and the constant pressure of work nearly drove him to exhaustion. On the strong advice of his doctor, he decided to take a vacation. "All my life, I've done nothing but work. This time, I need to try something completely different." Alexander flipped through travel brochures until one caught his attention, a cruise called In Search of Africa's Hidden Gems. He had always loved challenges, and a trip to the unfamiliar African continent seemed especially tempting. "This vacation will definitely be special," Alexander muttered as he looked out at the Tanzanian coastline. The African shore, visible through the window, was even more beautiful than he had imagined. However, fate had prepared something far greater than just a holiday. That night, a sudden storm struck the cruise ship, one that no forecast had warned of. Towering waves tossed the liner like a paper boat. Passengers panicked as they prepared for evacuation. In the chaos, while saving a little girl, Alexander missed the lifeboat, was swallowed by a massive wave, and lost consciousness. When he awoke, he found himself on an unfamiliar beach. His throat was dry, and his whole body ached, as if crushed by a truck. His expensive suit was soaked, torn, and covered with sand and salt. With difficulty, he pulled himself up. Soon, several women appeared, walking along the beach with large baskets on their heads, singing songs. At first, they were frightened and stepped back, but when they saw that Alexander was injured, they whispered among themselves and decided to help. "This man is dying. We must save him," said one of them, a 30-year-old woman named Akila, her strong voice addressing the others who hesitated. She was tall, strong, with deep brown eyes. Alexander weakly waved at them, "Water, please," but they did not understand his English. Without hesitation, Akila stepped forward and handed him a flask of water. The other women cautiously came closer and examined his wounds. Alexander followed them to a small village, a world he had never seen before. Round clay and thatch huts dotted the hillside. There was no electricity in the village, and when darkness fell, only torches and bonfires lit the night. Children ran barefoot playing, while elders sat outside their huts talking. Later, he learned he was in the village of Kirema in Burundi, near Lake Tanganyika. For the first few weeks, Alexander experienced deep culture shock. He had to live without modern conveniences. No phone, no internet, no electricity, no plumbing, no toilets. The road to the nearest city, Bujumbura, was barely passable, making contact with the outside world nearly impossible. Unbelievable that in the 21st century such places still exist, Alexander remarked to one of his rescuers, Akila. Slowly he began learning the local language. Akila knew a little English and French, so they managed to communicate. Akila smiled and shook her head. "We have much: family, friends, and the spirit of helping one another. Money is a little, but we live happily." At first, he couldn't grasp her words. A man who had always chased material success had a hard time accepting the idea of happiness without it. but over time, he was moved by the warmth and communal spirit of the villagers. "How can I help today?" Every morning, Alexander asked Aquila. At first, he did it just to pass the time, but gradually he became genuinely interested in the life of the village. Alexander began using his construction knowledge to help the villagers repair their homes. He taught them how to build stronger roofs and walls with simple tools so they wouldn't leak. His knowledge brought new hope to the community. "You are truly a miracle for us," Aquila said one evening. They were sitting by the fire in the center of the village while people danced to traditional music around them. "Thanks to the methods you taught us, our houses will not collapse during this rainy season." Alexander was deeply touched by her sincere gratitude. In New York, he had built countless skyscrapers, but none of those projects had ever given him the same satisfaction as repairing clay huts in this small village. One night, when the stars shone especially brightly, Aquila quietly asked Alexander, "I don't think you came to our village by accident. Maybe the gods sent you. You have brought us hope." Alexander was not a religious man, yet her words struck him deeply. He had believed he ended up here by chance, but now he felt a burning desire to help the village and its people. About 6 months after his arrival, Alexander learned an astonishing fact about local culture. The village elder, a 70-year-old silver-haired man named Kamau, approached him. "Alexander, you are now an important part of our village," Kamau began slowly, meeting him during a community gathering. "We are very grateful for your knowledge and help, and we wish to fully accept you into our community." Alexander smiled. "It is an honor for me, Elder Kamau. I have also learned so much here." Kamau nodded gravely. "According to our culture, a man of your status may have several wives. This is our tradition and our pride. Many women would like to be with you." The smile vanished from Alexander's face. "Polygamy? I am from America. We do not have such a tradition. We can only marry one woman." Kamau nodded with understanding. "Every culture is different, but here in Burundi, you have done so much for our village. We respect you, and many women wish to marry you, especially Aquila. She wants to be your first wife." Alexander was torn. He had special feelings for Aquila. Every evening they spoke, and her strength, wisdom, and laughter had touched his soul deeply. But having multiple wives went against his values. After several days of thought, Alexander decided to speak with Aquila. "Aquila, do you truly want me to take several wives?" he asked carefully. With a serious expression, she replied, "In our culture, it is natural. Strong men take several wives and build large families. It is a symbol of wealth and status and a way to strengthen the tribe with more children." But then she hesitated for a moment. "If you are not comfortable with it, we will understand." She took a deep breath. "We respect your culture. My feelings for you are special. If this is your way, and if everyone respects one another, then I think I can accept it." A wide smile spread across her face, and she gripped Alexander's hand tightly. "You truly are a great man, Alexander. Thank you for trying to understand our culture." In the end, Alexander decided to embrace the village tradition. He first married Aquila, and later other women of the village. Each wedding was a celebration for everyone. The ceremonies were held beneath the sacred tree. Following tradition, Alexander gave each bride a hoe, and together they tilled the land as a promise for the future. The beat of traditional drums echoed throughout the village. People sang and danced all night. Banana beer flowed freely, and the entire village felt like one big family. "Now we are one family," Alexander said with emotion, looking at his wives. "I promise to do everything I can for you and for this village. Let us build a better future together." At that moment, Alexander felt for the first time that he had found a place he could truly call home. The sense of belonging and warmth was unlike anything he had ever known in his luxurious New York apartment. Over time, Alexander's family grew quickly. His first wife, Aquila, after a difficult labor, gave birth to healthy twins, and the entire village celebrated the miracle. The other wives also bore children. Within 3 years, he and his 11 wives had 24 children. "My family is growing too fast. I am worried," Alexander admitted one evening to Aquila. They sat outside their hut, gazing at the starry sky. "I want to give the children a good future, but in this village that is not easy. Education, healthcare, opportunities, everything they need is lacking." Aquila squeezed his hand firmly. "You have already taught us so much: how to build stronger houses, how to purify water, how to farm more efficiently. But we also know greater changes are needed." Alexander thought deeply. Watching the children run through the village, he remembered his own childhood. The education and opportunities he had been given had made him a successful businessman. He now passionately wished the same for his children and for all the children of the village. "I must return to America. I will use my company and resources to create a plan for the development of this place. When I return, we will transform this village completely. I will build schools, clinics, provide clean water, and bring electricity." Fear flickered in Aquila's eyes. She gripped his hand even tighter. "Will you really come back? Many foreigners have made beautiful promises, then left and never returned." Her voice trembled. Alexander gently touched her face and wiped away her tears. "I promise to return in 6 months. I will never abandon my family or this village. This is my vow, my oath. Believe me, Aquila." The next day, Alexander gathered the entire village and explained his plan. He told them he would return to America to use his company to raise funds and resources for a development project in their community. "I respect your culture and traditions, but I want to change the quality of life here, for safer homes, healthier food, better education, and a brighter future." The villagers reacted to Alexander's plan in different ways. Some were filled with hope, while others looked doubtful. "Foreigners always make pretty promises, but few ever keep them," one of the elders muttered. Alexander understood their doubts. For so long they had been disappointed by the outside world, and to them, another promise could easily be nothing more than empty words. To prove his sincerity, Alexander took off his expensive watch and gave it to Elder Kamau. "This belonged to my father. I leave it here as a pledge that I will return." The entire village gathered to see Alexander off. He planned to reach Bujumbura, seek help from the embassy, and then return to America. Before leaving, he stood in the center of the village and made a solemn vow. "I will return with tools and resources to improve your lives. This is my oath and my promise. For the future of our children, for the future of all of us, I will return." Aquila embraced him with tears in her eyes. His other wives and children also bid him farewell in sorrow. Alexander looked at them one last time, waved, and left the village of Kirema. Back in America, however, he faced a brutal reality he had never expected. During his absence, his company had been almost completely plundered from within. His business partner, Victor Sullivan, had declared Alexander dead, seized the company's assets, and launched a new business under his own name. When Alexander walked into the company building in New York, employees were stunned, as if they had seen a ghost. News spread quickly. Victor stormed into the office. "Alexander, how is this possible? You're alive?" Victor feigned shock, but in his eyes flickered fear and unease. Alexander replied coldly, surprised, "It seems you wanted me dead very much." No, not at all. We all thought you had died in the shipwreck. That's what the news reported," Victor stammered. "What happened to my company?" Alexander demanded sharply. Sweating, Victor mumbled, "Well, after your disappearance, I had to settle things. Everyone believed you were dead. I only acted according to the law." Alexander immediately opened the company computer system and checked the accounts. The accounts, which had held billions before his departure, were now empty. The main assets had been transferred to other parties. Rage surged inside him, but Alexander kept calm. Victor, you know how meticulous I am. All my important documents are notarized. Every transaction is recorded. You have made a grave mistake. Alexander quickly hired a lawyer and launched legal action. Step by step, he uncovered evidence of how Victor and several board members had siphoned off funds and stolen key projects. But the court process was far more complex and lengthy than he had imagined. Mr. Orton, to be frank, this case will take at least 2 to 3 years, said Alexander's attorney, George Palmer, with a grave expression. They used your legal death certificate to make everything look legitimate. Your chances of winning are high, but it will take time. 3 years? Alexander was stunned. I cannot wait that long. I promised to return to Burundi in 6 months. The lawyer sighed. I'm sorry, Mr. Orton, but the American legal system isn't fast, and the other side will use every resource and connection to delay the process as much as possible. Alexander left the office and walked along the New York waterfront, lost in thought. Faces of his family in the Burundian village appeared in his mind over and over, especially Akila's worried eyes and her question, "Will you really return?" He clenched his fists. I must find a way. Alexander worked day and night. He used all his remaining personal savings and reached out to old friends and business partners. But most refused to lend large sums to a man they thought had been dead, especially when he planned to invest in one of the poorest countries in the world. Burundi? Are you insane? Putting money into some African backwater? Would they ever come back? His former classmate, Michael Bell, refused him without hesitation. Days passed, and Alexander grew more and more afraid he would not be able to keep his promise. Every night he was haunted by nightmares, in which Akila, his other wives, and his children accused him of betrayal and wept. 6 months had passed, and Alexander was still in America. He tried to reach Burundi, but the village of Kirema had no phone, no internet, and the letters he sent were returned undelivered. He attempted to send word through international humanitarian organizations, but the village was too remote, and no group visited it regularly. A year went by, and Alexander's legal battle still dragged on. He won some hearings, but Victor kept creating new obstacles, delaying the process. Alexander's face grew weary, and the old fire in his eyes began to fade. After 2 years, he finally achieved a breakthrough. He obtained key evidence of Victor's wrongdoing and demanded an expedited resolution. The court ruled in Alexander's favor, ordering the return of most company assets. Now I can finally keep my promise, Alexander told his lawyer as he accepted the judgment. But Victor was preparing his final strike. He had already transferred most of the assets to overseas accounts and hidden the rest under other people's names. Shortly after the verdict, Victor fled the country and vanished without a trace. Alexander was crushed again, but this time he resolved not to give up. Using the assets he recovered and his new connections, he developed a new plan. He began attracting investors for a project called Africa's Hope and outlined a sustainable development model for Burundi. This is not just charity, he explained to potential investors. It is a long-term investment that can open new markets and unlock the potential of underdeveloped regions. Burundi has rich natural and human resources, and by giving them opportunities, we can grow together. Alexander's passion and sincerity moved some investors, and soon he raised enough funds to launch the project. He purchased construction equipment, solar panels, medicines, and school supplies. All of it was loaded onto a massive cargo ship. But just as he was about to leave America, another obstacle arose. Victor accused Alexander of fraud. The accusation was completely false, but Alexander was placed under a travel ban and forced once again into court. At this rate, I may never return, Alexander muttered in despair. Finally, after 3 years, Alexander resolved all legal issues and had the travel restrictions lifted. Without hesitation, he prepared and led the huge cargo ship bound for Burundi. Meanwhile, in the village of Kirema, his wives and children were falling deeper into despair with each passing day. The promised 6 months had long expired, and now the third year was nearly gone. "He has probably deceived us," sighed Zainab, one of Alexander's wives, her eyes full of sorrow and her shoulders heavy with burden. "Foreigners always lie. They make beautiful promises but never keep them. He just used us." Akila still tried not to lose hope, but even in her eyes the light was fading. "Alexander is not like the others. He will return. I believe in him." Yet her voice grew uncertain. Every night she stared at the watch Alexander had left behind, silently crying. The watch had long since stopped ticking, as though Alexander's promise had stopped with it. Life in the village grew harsher. That year brought the worst drought in recorded history. The harvest failed, and water grew scarcer by the day. Alexander's large family struggled to survive. The children cried from hunger, especially the youngest, who grew weak from malnutrition. "When will Daddy come back?" asked Alexander's eldest son, 7-year-old Jerry, every morning. "Daddy promised he would help us." Akila didn't know what to say. She only hugged him tightly and whispered, "Soon." But in her heart, she no longer knew how long soon could last. The villagers' attitude began to change also. At first, they sympathized and supported Alexander's family, but as time went on, they grew colder. "Abandoned family," they whispered. "Unfortunate women, deceived by a foreigner, they are nothing now." Some villagers still tried to help, but with the drought, everyone suffered, and supporting 11 women and 24 children was a heavy burden. "Akila, you must accept reality," Elder Kama told her, his voice gentle but firm. "Alexander will not return. You and the other wives must begin a new life. There are men in the village willing to take you in." Akila shook her head resolutely. "No, I believe in Alexander. He promised he will return." But at night, when she was alone, Akila also began to doubt whether Alexander would really return, or if they had truly been abandoned. She looked up at the stars and prayed, "Alexander, wherever you are, I hope you are safe. If you can, come back to us. We need you. I need you." In the third year, Akila finally made a decision. She could no longer wait. For the children's sake, she had to move forward. She hid Alexander's watch in a small box and resolved to bury both it and her memories of him deep in her heart. "Starting tomorrow, we begin a new life," she told the other wives. "Alexander taught us so much, and now we must use that knowledge to help ourselves and raise our children." The women nodded, sadness in their eyes, but also a new resolve. They loved Alexander, but life had to go on. Then one morning, children playing on the shore ran into the village shouting. A massive ship had appeared at the coast, so large it looked like a mountain. Akila and the other women exchanged glances. They had never seen a real large ship before, only small fishing boats or the occasional trading vessel. "It's probably just more foreigners," sighed Zainab. "Maybe tourists here to take pictures." But the children wouldn't stop shouting, and out of curiosity, the villagers gathered at the shore. There, indeed, stood a gigantic cargo ship, unlike anything they had ever seen. It looked like a floating city, and its size stunned the villagers. Dozens of workers came down from the ship, using cranes to unload large containers and equipment. Most were foreigners, but among them, a familiar figure appeared. Suddenly, a very familiar voice rang out. "Akila, Zainab, Imani, Sophia, where are you?" A man stepped quickly from the crowd. He was dressed in a neat suit, but his face was unmistakably familiar. Though there were lines at the corners of his eyes, it was without question Alexander. "Alexander?" Akila asked in a trembling voice. "Is it really you?" Alexander, holding back tears, nodded. "Yes, Akila, I have returned. I kept my promise." Only then did Akila feel her legs move. With tears in her eyes, she ran to Alexander and hugged him tightly. The other wives and children followed, and soon Alexander was surrounded by his large family. The children shouted with joy, hugging his legs. The women wept, touching him as if to make sure he was real and not a dream. "You really came back?" Aquila sobbed. "We thought you had forgotten us, but I always believed in you." Alexander could no longer hold back. Hot tears streamed down his face as he embraced Aquila and the other wives. "I could never forget you. Every day, every minute, I thought of you. Forgive me for making you wait so long, but now I am back, and I will never leave again." He told his wives and the villagers everything about his legal battles in America, his struggle to reclaim the company, and at last his monumental preparations to return to Burundi. As they listened, the villagers grew more astonished, moved that Alexander had never forgotten them and had fought so hard to keep his promise. "I have not returned empty-handed," Alexander told the villagers, his voice full of confidence and hope. "On that ship is everything to transform our village: construction equipment, solar panels, medicine, school supplies, and much more. Together, we will turn this village into the most developed in Burundi." At first, the people could not believe it, but when the cranes began unloading massive containers one after another, and trucks and construction machinery lined the beach, their eyes lit up with amazement and joy. Elder Kamau slowly approached Alexander and bowed with deep respect. "You are truly a member of our village, Alexander. We welcome your return." Alexander bowed deeply in return. "Thank you, Elder Kamau. I came back to fulfill my promise. Now let's build the future together." That night, the village held a grand celebration. Traditional drums thundered across the land, people sang and danced, children ran joyfully, and Alexander's wives sat proudly by his side. "You really will never leave again?" Aquila asked softly. Alexander gripped her hand firmly. "Never. This is my home. You are my family. This village is my homeland. I will stay here and build the future we dreamed of, together." Tears of joy streamed down Aquila's face. At last, she could cast aside all the doubts and fears that had tormented her for so long. Alexander had returned. He had not abandoned them. His promise was fulfilled. From the very next day, the village of Karema began to transform. With the equipment Alexander had brought, sturdier houses were built, and solar panels lit up the village with its first electric lights. "Look," Alexander said, gathering the villagers in front of the school building where the first solar panel had been installed. He pressed the switch, and the light bulbs in the building lit up one after another. The children screamed with excitement, and the adults watched this miracle with awe. "This is not just light bulbs," Alexander said with feeling. "This is the future of our children. Now they can study in the evenings, use computers, and connect with the world. Light means knowledge, and knowledge is power." Together with specialists he had brought from America, Alexander began teaching the villagers new technologies. Agronomists taught them to plant drought-resistant crops and create efficient irrigation systems. Doctors treated patients in the new clinic and trained locals in the basics of medicine. A well with clean running water was installed in the center of the village, so women no longer had to walk long distances with heavy jars on their heads. Children drank clean water, regained their strength, and studied hard in the new school. "Is this a dream?" Aquila asked one evening as she and Alexander watched the sunset from the terrace of their new home. Her voice still carried disbelief. Alexander smiled and took her hand. "No, this is not a dream. It's the reality we created together." "The changes you brought are simply incredible," Aquila said emotionally. "But your return, that was the greatest gift." Alexander smiled warmly in reply. "This is only the beginning. We plan to make this village a model for all of Burundi, so other villages can develop too. The plan did not stop there. He built a small factory in the village to process local agricultural products and increase their value. This way, villagers earned more income and began moving toward economic independence. Especially remarkable was the rise of women's status. Each of Alexander's wives played an important role in the village's development. Akila became the director of the new school, which flourished under her leadership. Zainab headed a women's entrepreneurship project, teaching others how to start and run small businesses. When a woman is economically independent, the whole family changes. We no longer depend on anyone. We can shape our own future. Other women in the village also used their talents to contribute. Imani worked as a nurse in the clinic, while Sophia reimagined traditional crafts and sold them to tourists. They were no longer abandoned women, but the heart of the village, the driving force of change. The children grew quickly, too. Alexander's children now lived in two cultures. They spoke both Russian and the local language, studied Burundi's traditional dances and music, but at the same time received a modern education. They became examples for other children in the village, inspiring everyone to dream bigger. "Dad, will I be able to go study in New York one day?" asked Alexander's oldest son, 11-year-old Peter Jayori, one evening at dinner. His eyes were full of curiosity and hope. Alexander smiled warmly and replied, "Of course, Peter. You can study in New York or anywhere else in the world. But always remember, our true wealth is not money or buildings, but our love for each other and the way we help others." Peter nodded proudly. "I want to be like you, Dad, a man who helps others." Hearing this, tears welled up in Alexander's eyes. He hugged his son tightly and in that moment knew that all his struggles and battles had not been in vain. 5 years passed. This little village in one of the poorest countries in the world was now known as the Village of Hope. Karema was recognized as the most successful model of regional development in Burundi. Visitors from around the world came to witness the astonishing transformation with their own eyes. In the school, children used modern computers to connect with students abroad and share their achievements. The hospital was equipped with modern facilities and provided quality healthcare. On farms, using sustainable agriculture methods, they harvested rich crops, and small factories processed local products for export to international markets. Alexander and his family lived in a beautiful house in the center of the village, blending modern and traditional elements. Powered by solar panels and equipped with a rainwater harvesting system, the home also served as a community center where villagers gathered to make important decisions. "I can't believe our village has changed so much," Akila said one day on the terrace, looking out over the village. Her face was filled with pride and joy. Alexander wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "Now we can help others." Indeed, Kirema had become a hub of support for nearby villages. They shared their technologies and experience, and Alexander's Hope for Africa project spread throughout Burundi. Each year, more people came to the Village of Hope to learn the secrets of its success. The Burundian government also began to see the village as a model for national development and launched similar projects in other regions. Even international humanitarian organizations studied Kirema's model to apply it in other poor developing countries. "If you hadn't washed up on our shore that day, none of this would exist," Akila told Alexander one starry night. They sat on the same beach where they had first met, moonlight shimmering on the calm waters of Lake Tanganyika. Alexander held her hand tightly. "Maybe it was fate. I never thought a shipwreck would open such a beautiful journey." They stood on a hill overlooking the village. Below, bright lights sparkled, and children's laughter drifted on the wind. The gentle waves of Lake Tanganyika reflected the moonlight. "As long as we're together, we can overcome anything," Alexander said emotionally. "That is the most valuable lesson I've learned from this journey." 10 years later, Kirema had completely transformed. It had grown into a small town, and the Kirema model was now studied around the world, included in textbooks for developing nations. Alexander's children had grown and gone their own ways. Some studied at American universities, others worked to improve society in Burundi. All carried the mission to change the world and embodied the richness of two cultures. Akila had grown older, but she was still full of energy and led the community. They often reminisced about the days when they overcame hardships together, grateful that their love and dedication had brought hope not only to a village, but to an entire nation. "Our story is coming to an end," Alexander told Akila one evening. Akila smiled and shook her head. "No, our story will never end. It will continue in our children and their children. The seeds of hope we planted will keep growing forever." Alexander nodded deeply. He remembered the storm, the chance encounter, and how it had completely changed his life. From his experience, he understood that sometimes the darkest moments lead to the brightest future. Although this story tells of a unique journey of a businessman, it carries important messages for all of us. The importance of keeping promises, of respecting other cultures, and, most importantly, of never losing hope under any circumstances. Even in a country like Burundi, considered one of the poorest in the world, miracles can happen when love, dedication, and the right resources come together. Just as Alexander fought tirelessly for 3 years for his family and the village, sometimes the greatest struggles in life lead us to our greatest achievements. His long fight, the moving reunion, and the stunning transformation of Kirema showed the strength of human will and love. The story of Alexander, his wives, and the villagers inspires us all. Perhaps you too will face unexpected challenges in your life. But remember Alexander's story. Sometimes the darkest moments can lead to the brightest future. And a promise made, no matter how hard to keep, must be honored, because that is the true meaning of love and devotion. Moreover, when people from different cultures and backgrounds understand and respect one another, they can achieve more together. When Alexander embraced Burundi's traditions and the villagers embraced his knowledge and ideas, they grew and thrived. You too have the power to change lives. A small act, a sincere promise, can become a beacon of hope for someone. If today's story inspired you, please support us with a like and subscription. Your single click helps us share more moving stories with the world. Next time, we will bring you another amazing story. Until then, never lose hope and keep following your dreams. Thank you, everyone.